Hello one and all, this is Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again with another video game first impressions. This time around, Hitman 3 for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and Series S, PC, Nintendo Switch, and Google Stadia. Pretty much for everything that you could possibly play it on. The third IO Interactive developed Hitman game is also the conclusion of the soft reboot that was the Hitman franchise back in 2016, and now here we are in 2021 with the closing of this trilogy. From a gameplay perspective, a majority of the game, right down to the menus, are just like it was in Hitman 1 and Hitman 2, the IO Interactive versions. And that's really good because it feels familiar. It feels like you can just jump right in and feel like you've never left. And that is because the majority of the systems and the gameplay and the controls work fairly well. When it comes to killing, when it comes to trying to take down the targets, of course, the mission story options are revealed as you progress throughout the stages, and that's what really makes this game different from Hitman 1 and 2 is how grandiose some of the levels are. You could easily get lost and trying to not only track your target but also just explore to figure out what options you do have, and there are a lot of options when it comes to eliminating your target. Just like Hitman 1 and 2, of course, there is a leveling system, and experience points are given to level up those profile levels. And by leveling up, you gain more suits, more weapons, more gadgets, and even different spots to start the level when you replay a mission. And that's one of the biggest things about Hitman 1 and 2 that flows into Hitman 3, is that this game is built on replayability. This game is built on trying to do your best to complete the mission in a variety of ways. You will be going back and forth if that's what you choose to do. If you don't want to just play through the game one time to see how the story pans out, a story that is focusing on the events following Hitman 2 that sees Agent 47 still trying to track down the elusive Illuminati-style group that is pretty much controlling the world as we know it. If you just want to play through and see the story once, that's fine, but a majority of Hitman players, especially those who have become fans of the franchise since IO Interactive took over, will be looking to complete the missions over and over again to not only get 100%, but to also just see what kind of wild and wacky things Agent 47 can do to complete his mission. Unfortunately, one of my favorite things about Hitman 2 is not in Hitman 3, and that was Ghost Mode. Ghost Mode was a mode where you took on a fellow competitor online and tried to kill 5 targets before they could. It was one of my favorite things about Hitman 2, and unfortunately it is not a part of Hitman 3. Maybe they may patch it in later on, but I don't think they will, which is so sad. Sniper Assassin mode does return, that came from Hitman 2, but it's single player only. Escalation from Hitman 1 and 2 returns here, where you're in the middle of a mission with stipulations that become more and more grandiose as you go through the 5 stages of escalation. The elusive targets that have been seen in Hitman 1 and 2 haven't arrived just yet, but they are promising that they will be available in the near future. One of the biggest pluses about Hitman 3 is the fact that you can transfer your saves and your information from Hitman 1 and 2 to this game, so you can also not only use some of the gadgets that are exclusive to Hitman 3 in those stages, because you also are able to play the Hitman 1 and 2 stages, but you're also able to get gadgets that you got in Hitman 1 and 2 that transfer into Hitman 3. Unfortunately, there have been issues with the server since the game launched, so it may be a little difficult to transfer that information, but if you can, it is great. But it also ties in one of the biggest problems, not only with Hitman 3, but also with IO Interactive's Hitmans in general. And that is the fact that this game, just like those ones, is online all the time. You have to be connected to these servers all the time if you want to gain that XP and it actually stick. Everything that you unlock, every level that you reach, all the EXP that you get, it's connected to the online servers. So if you're offline, you don't get any XP, you don't get any leveling, you don't get any unlocks. And it's unfortunate because as good of a game as this is, as was the case with Hitman 1 and 2, it feels like if something bad goes wrong, if your internet just happens to drop out while you're playing this game, you lose all your progress. And that is so unfortunate. I don't know why developers are still doing this right now. I understand the online functionality, I understand the connectivity, but to spend 20, 30, 40 minutes on a mission and then something catastrophic happens and you lose everything. You lose all your progress. You lose everything that you had worked so hard for because this game has to be connected online. It's a travesty. Overall, Hitman 3 is pretty much the best of everything that you've gotten from Hitman 1 and 2. If you enjoyed Hitman 1 and 2, if you enjoyed the reboot trilogy, if you enjoyed the first two-thirds of this reboot trilogy, there is no reason not to get Hitman 3. It is everything that you would want and more, even with some flaws like the always online portion. If you haven't cared for these versions of Hitman, if you think that the PS2 versions or the Absolution version were more of your cup of tea, this won't change your mind, and it's probably better just to skip. But if you've enjoyed the previous two Hitman games from Iowa Interactive, there's no reason not to pick this up right now. So there you have it. This has been Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again with another video game first impressions. Hitman 3 for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series S and X, PC, Nintendo Switch, and Google Stadia. Now, if you don't mind, I have a target in my sights, and I have to be very, very cautious because if my disguise is unraveled and I am identified, I could blow an entire mission. But if I'm stealthy and I'm quiet, my target will have no choice but to say, "Oh Lordy."